Hi everyone, my name is Mandy Fierbacher. I'm a former U.S. visa officer and a licensed U.S. immigration attorney. I apologize, my voice is a little bit scratchy this morning. I lost my voice, but I didn't want to delay bringing this important information to you about the F1 visa interview in 2023. So today I'm going to go over a couple of visa changes, updates to the visa policy for this year, and then I'm going to go straight into my top 5 tips for you if you're applying for an F1 visa interview this year, okay? So lots of exciting changes about the F1 visa interview. The first change is that students can now actually apply 365 days before their program start date, okay? This is a huge change because this basically means that as international students, you can plan ahead and apply way in advance of your program start date. That was not always the case. Until recently, students had to wait until 120 days before their program start date. So many students were having to, forced to come into that 4-month window to apply for their student visa, but no more. The State Department is allowing you to plan ahead because there are still backlogs around the world and they want to make sure that you have time to get your visa before your program starts in the fall. However, one thing to keep in mind is that even though you can now apply way in advance of your program start date, you still can only enter the US within 30 days of your program start date. So that has actually not changed, okay? So keep in mind that even if you get your visa approved, 8 months ahead, you can't just go into the US and hang out for 8 months before your SCREW program starts. You have to wait until 30 days before your program starts before you can go in. Now, the second update, which is not so positive, is that visa fees are actually going up. So visa fees are going up on May 30th, 2023, so in about 4 days' time. And right now, it is still $160 US to apply for an F1 visa. But if you're applying after May 30th, 2023, you will be paying $185 US for your student visa application fee. So that is an increase of 15%. It's actually not that bad. I think that it just is keeping up with inflation. So don't be surprised if you're budgeting for your visa fee that it has gone up and will go up if you're applying in 4 days from now. So now I'm going to go straight into my top 5 tips for F1 visa applicants this year. Tip number 1 is to make sure that you do not give one-word answers at your student visa interview. I've said this in many videos before, but I'm saying it again because for some reason, students are still doing this. But the first question that the visa officer is going to ask you is, why are you going to the United States, or some variation of that? And you definitely don't want to say, study. So many students do this, and it just pisses the visa officer off because they have your I-20 in front of them. They know you're a student. They know you're going to study. So you're not telling them anything that they don't already know. And you just wasted an opportunity to give them really positive information about your situation. Okay. So again, no one-word answers for any of the questions. You want to give visa officers context. Now, you don't want to ramble on and talk about things that are irrelevant, but you don't want to give one-word answers either. So you want to find that perfect balance of giving answers that are informational, helpful, exactly what the visa officers want to know, but not too long and not rambly, okay? So no one-word answers. Tip number 2 is to not memorize responses. Again, this is something that I've said before, but people are still doing it, so I have to say it again. Do not memorize your answers, okay? You can have in mind the top 5 things that you want to mention, but you want to be prepared to say it in a way where you feel comfortable giving that information to the visa officer, okay? So visa officers are super smart. They have a lot of experience interviewing people, and so they can tell right away if you've memorized your responses. Take it from me, I'm a former visa officer. I've interviewed over 100,000 people, many of them international students, and I remember I could always tell when somebody had their responses memorized because they sounded like a robot. They were just like, I'm applying for a visa because this school is the best fit for me. No, do not memorize your responses, okay? My tip number 3 is that you want to establish a connection with the visa officer. You want to look them in the eye. You want to feel comfortable and confident, and you want to connect with them so that it makes them really see you, hear you, and understand you. And I realize this is not always easy to do, and sometimes it's not possible if the visa officer is typing and not looking at you, but you should still do your best, okay? Give it your best shot. Connect with them and, establish that you are someone who is speaking from your heart, who is being authentic. And so, one part of doing that is not memorizing your responses, but the other part is just really listening to the officer's question, giving them, a thought out response that doesn't sound like every other answer that they're hearing from students. So perhaps, I'll give you an example. If the officer asks, oh, I see you're going to, this specific school, for example, UCLA. Do you like football? I know they have a great team. Maybe you can talk a little bit about football. Like, yes, I just watched football for the first time, American football. It's really exciting. Or you can be honest and be like, I don't know anything about American football, but I'm really looking forward to going to UCLA to get my first football experience. Whatever your answer is, just listen to their question, establish that connection with the visa officer. That is so important. Number 4, this tip is actually for students who have been denied a visa before. If you have been denied a visa before, make sure that you are not changing your school just because you've been denied before. So many students try to change schools just because they've been denied, because they think that the problem is with the school. But guess what? The problem is not with the school. The problem is with how you presented yourself at your interview. So don't change your school, because that is not going to help your situation. And in fact, what that's going to tell the visa officer is that you are desperate for a student visa. You're just desperate to get into the US for any reason. And so keep your school the same, but do a better job of preparing at your visa interview, okay? And tip number 5 is to be prepared to explain your funding. That is an important question for visa officers. How do you plan to pay for your tuition? If you have a scholarship, you want to bring that up right away. If you have a sponsor who's paying for your tuition, make sure you give a little bit of context of what that relationship is between you and your sponsor. Why would this person want to pay for your tuition? The visa officer will want to know that. And if you don't answer, then they're going to fill in the blanks for themselves and probably deny your visa, okay? So these are my top 5 tips for the F1 student visa interview. If there's anything else that you want about the F1 student visa interview or any other visa type, drop me a comment, give me your top video topics that you want to hear about so that I can make more videos that you're interested in. And I wish you the best of luck on your student visa process. Again, if you prepare with an expert before your visa interview, that is the best way to be successful. And you want to work with an ex-visa officer like myself, someone who really knows how visa officers make these decisions, their culture, and you can book a session with me at www.zfvisa.com. That's Z as in zebra, F as in friendly.com. And I can work with you to prepare for your visa interview. Do plan ahead, because my schedule is getting booked up 2 to 3 weeks out, and I want to make sure that you have time, that I have time for you to prepare you for your visa interview so that you can pass on the very first try. I look forward to working with you, and I hope that this video has been helpful. Thank you so much for listening.